And you had, of course, I assume you had, you and your organization had a great deal to do with those 50 people showing up and getting them organized, telling them.
Right, they were wearing our stickers. They all came in and they sat all around the room, and they even applauded after I testified, which made the chair, well, not angry, but he was, you know, like gabbling, quiet, we don't applaud. So, yeah.
Dai, you're working with at least 2 organizations. It seems like you have affiliations with several, and some of them have large membership bases.
That's correct.
How do you attempt to leverage those numbers? Maybe because of the nature of your organizations, you have a larger number of people that you can potentially mobilize than Twila does. But how do you try to use the people power?
Sure.
To get through to the legislators?
Yeah, I mean, I love what Take Action Minnesota is doing. You know, we have a C3 where we could do, you know, citizenship engagement, and then we also have a C4 where we do screening and endorsement. The cycle that we use is we do actions and issue cut, and then we do, if that's not effective, we do electoral vote so we can screen and put in our progressive candidate into office, and then we do leadership development to cut those issues and to create those actions. The strength has come out of our leaderships. So you got the organizational structure and accountability structure, and then you got two board, and then you got core leaders who within the organizations that they have their own base too, and so it's all through relationship. And so when we do an action, we'll have hundreds of people, and it's good to have champions at the Capitol to organize around issues such as JMC or Central Corridor or jobs and transportation for women and people of color. But it's also important that you have congregations and community members and affiliate allies organization outside pounding on the door and seeking the kind of change that you want. And so the model that we use at Take Action Minnesota is, you know, we do one-on-one. We figure what individual citizens' self-interests are, and then we'll come back and I'll try to figure out what that person's self-interest is and how I can proposition him and her into a path to power where I could politicize their oppression or their anger to create power for themselves so that they can have a power relationship with elected officials, you know, where they can call them up and be in conversation. But our compass of organizing it's about power, right? Because power is the Latin word for that is posse, and that means to be able. And so in order for us to be able as citizens to create change and to live out some of the values that we talked about.
Well, we've heard about a number of things that can translate into power. Information and large groups of people and organization, and money's been mentioned several times. If your goal is actually to affect legislation, one big form of power is getting legislators to agree with your position. Votes, that's really pretty directly going to translate. Votes at the legislature. Twila, what have you figured out about how to recruit a legislator to be an ally, or turn an opponent into an ally, or what if you picture someone who wanted to do this kind of work and wanted to talk to legislators, what do they need to know about the right way to ask for their support and get it?
Well, you know, I think it's actually very difficult if you are on a different side than the legislator. And sometimes the legislator actually might be on your side, but it is the power of their leadership that they're going to follow no matter what. No matter what you say, no matter how right you are, no matter if your principles are right, if you've got the facts straight, it's not going to matter. But what can happen is that you can get the power of the people behind you, and they, more than anything, are afraid about whether they will be elected as a legislator the next round. So sometimes if they think that your issue is going to turn the people, the public, against them at the voting booth, sometimes that will change their minds. Sometimes they're really with you, and they're so with you, or they find a constituent of theirs that is so with you that they will agree to change their position and take a different kind of vote than they were originally going to do.
So another form of power in these efforts is to some degree intimidate a legislator into believing that he's going to have a political problem if he doesn't help you. How close, when you're actually interacting with them, how close do you come to discussing that in a straightforward and candid way, to saying, we've got people in your district who are on our side, and they're watching what you're doing, and they're not going to be happy if you continue to oppose us?
I almost never do that. What happens, though, is that the issue is made very clear through our email list, and then they start receiving calls from their own constituents. And that sends a message that their constituents are aware of the issue and are looking at their vote and know that we will report their vote at the end of the day. But usually I never bring that up. I just leave it to their constituents to give them the message if their constituents wish to do so.
So, Rich, you don't really, because you're not part of a big organization, I'm sure you sometimes get involved in efforts to mobilize people on your side, but because you're basically a sole practitioner, you don't have as many options to influence legislators, perhaps to put political pressure on them, but you do a lot of face-to-face discussions.
Right.
What have you figured out about what's the best way to reach somebody on a person-to-person basis and convince them to take your side?
Well, you got to find out, who, as you know, any legislature has its committees, has its chair people, has people who are known to be advocates for certain interests or certain things. So what I've always tried over the years to find who some of the key legislators are, whether it be they might be a strong proponent for privacy, they might be a strong proponent for openness in government. So generally I try and talk to them. Secondly, and this goes a little bit to what Twila was talking about, how leadership can put a nix on something or direct something. If you can get a respected elected official, legislator, who takes up causes and is known sort of as a principled person who will read every bill. Every legislator doesn't read every bill, but there are some legislators in any legislature in the country that is known as a good reputation, for certain things, whatever, has much of a broader perspective on things than some people who have very narrow interest. That's how I've been able to at least get my message out. You go to those people who are known for certain things. In our legislature, there are a number of people historically who are known for openness in government, who are known for privacy, who are known for civil liberties. So I'll try to approach those people first.
Dai, in your work, it seems to me you have some large numbers of individual citizens who you can potentially mobilize, but to the degree that they are poor people, let's say Hmong people, they're concentrated in a relative few legislative districts, and I would think that if there's something that's very important to the Hmong, you don't have to worry about the legislators from those districts. They are going to be very attentive to some point of view that is widely shared, but you probably don't have so many constituents spread across the state. How do you go about gaining any leverage over legislators when you don't represent very many of their constituents?
Yeah, that's a great question. I love that question. So how we do it is, let me use a Renew Minnesota campaign as an example. And so we know that this is an electoral year. This is we're going to try to get a new governor. And one way for us to impact that is to develop as many leaders as possible to become delegates. In our organizing, we truly believe that we need everybody. We need everybody. We don't just need the Hmong people. And we're all in this together. When we're all better, like Paul Wellstone said, we're all better when everybody's doing better. And so we really believe that. Our leaders, like I said earlier, this is the first phase of our organizing. In the first phase, what we do is we're just doing base building. Our goal this year is to develop 50 leaders who have their own base. So that means that they can go back and they have some sort of relationship with their clan leaders and their clan leaders advisor, right? So if each leader can have a base of around 20 to 30 people, and if that times that by 50s, that's some number. Then that's a good turnout for voting. So that's turnout for the primary and the general election. And then in October, we plan to have a gubernatorial forum where we like to invite the 3 candidates to come and meet the Hmong community and show, for them to get to know us and prove and explain why we should vote for them. And then out of that, if they can answer the question that we want, and then we'll vote for them. And like I said earlier, we're trying to align the Hmong base with the progressive base in Minnesota, and I think that's how we leverage and maximize our power.